Tell me when you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Ready? I've been studying again from Ois Lamed on page Samar Dalet. Although we already started a couple of times. Excuse me. We are talking about the fact that there are the principle that there are three madrigas in Oiros. And as we mentioned, that the Oiros, the three Oiros, we refer to Oiros, we mean Oiros after Aliyah Zerotz, after that the principle of world has been identified. Not as it as Elikus is unto itself. That is in a different realm. Oiros means Oiros that ultimately come down and on Nizgala and Mislabish and Keli. And there are three madrigas. And so far we discussed two of the three madrigas. And here's where he kind of puts them together. Base madrigas anal, regarding these two madrigas that we spoke about, namely the madriga that is the first result of the Aliyah Zorotzin, and the second one is after the tzimtzum, where there are the what we call chokhmah v'lo b'chokhmah yidiyah. So regarding these two madrigas nemar, it says Hamelech Hamroim Hamlevadim Eyos, the king who is removed, elevated, Levadoi alone, Meyos from then, meaning before the beginning of time. And who is supreme, elevated from the days of world. As I said, I was contemplating how do we relate to this? What does it mean to us? Ultimately, that is the ultimate goal in this learning. As we used the illustration, a very simple illustration. Now we said that if you see a home, fully appointed home, it looks like it was lived in. Like I said, the furnishings are not perfectly set because obviously people have moved it. They use it. There's a sign of actual life, but then you find out that this is an artist's rendition, and nobody ever lived in this home. And this home, this is a presentation of the model home. And somehow we have the sensitivity and the intelligence to distinguish between these two. And we say, if this is a home that people lived in, then I stand in awe of the home. And I respect it. I stand with respect for the people who lived here. And if not, if it's a model home, then I have no interest in it at all. What is this about? This clearly, and as I said, we have, as we were discussing, I got a positive response. Yes, indeed, there's a difference. How do we relate and how do we make sense of this difference? This difference is based, and it exposes the principle of our intelligence. That our intelligence is not the result of our experience, of a situation, or and the contemplation of consequence. If I do this, this is going to happen. I do this, this has to happen. We have a much deeper sense of intelligence, something that speaks about a fundamental truth. This is ultimately the root of our intelligence. The very same thing. If it's real, it's real. If it's not, it's not real. So therefore, we're not involved in our personal experience, and it's not in a consequence element. It is we are looking for what's called fundamental truth. Where do we get that idea? How does a human being, who himself is not, so to speak, truth, because he was born at a certain time and he's going to live in a certain amount of years, and throughout these meager years, he's concerned about survival, about supporting himself and so forth. Where does he get this kind of a tendency and a desire for related to the truth? The answer, of course, is that this intelligence is not a developed intelligence through kind of experience in life. It's a God-given intelligence. Truly, it's a godly spark. A human being knows that there is a truth, and that is the only truth. That is the only thing that really matters to him. That is significant to him. Ultimately, that is what he is about. Due to this essential intelligence, insight, he relates to these words that there's a king who is Adar, who is removed, is superior levada to the point where he cannot be reached. There is nothing that emanates from him that can reach us, except his truth and his presence. That truth and that presence, although it remains completely remote from us, but this knowledge is what picks us up. This knowledge is what keeps us inspired in all our trials and tribulations. And we have explained that this refers to the Oirin Soif, and to the Rotzen of Oirin Soif, and how the Oirin Soif relates to us, to world. But a remaining Oirin Soif, remaining in its own level. Okay, let's look inside now, the top line. Hamelach Hamrei Melobadi Meyos, the king, who is Ruma means elevated. Levado, he's so elevated that he cannot be reached. He is all by himself. Meyos from then, meaning from before time. Vamisnasim Mimeshelam, and who then rises above days of world. These are two different statements. If he's alone, so how do you compare him to days of world? And this is what the Rebbe is going to explain. The Pirush HaMelech HaMroimo, where the meaning of the word HaMelech, the king, who is Olav Meruma, means above, higher, Hu Shemeruma Mumunusa Be'etzem. The meaning of this word is that is Meruma. Meruma means above and elevated. Be'etzem. What does Be'etzem mean? And there's no way for us to translate the word etzem because it doesn't exist in a worldly arena. But we know, but etzem, this is a godly element. To help us, I'm always saying godly, and to get us into the framework and understand what we mean by godly. Miraculous and so forth. Godly, there is a so to speak, from our perspective, from comparison to the world, there's a very clear and specific meaning of that. And we always quote the Rambam, but the Rambam says, Yesoid ha-Yesoid es-Amud ha-Chochmas. What is the foundation of all foundation? What is the first principle of all knowledge? Is that there is a Motzu Rishon. There's a first being. First being, from a worldly perspective, is something which is outside the world. In world, everything has a consequence, has a process. Where does this come from? What is it about? How come it's there? Between the world and there is nothing that is first. The first also starts looking, so where does the first come from? How come it's there? That's a natural question in the world. And then we say, no. There's the first principle is to know that there's a first being. Meaning to say that there is a being, a truth, that is not begging for an explanation where it's coming from. The reason that we are begging an explanation where it's coming from is because world orientation, in the world there is no such a truth that is self-explanatory. Everything in the world is precarious. It has some kind of a limited presence, and thus it has to have a source. But the real union of the Lakus is a first being, the initiator of everything. And why is he initiate? We have absolute, the whole question doesn't even apply. He initiated because he wanted to initiate. What we call the Aliyah Zorotz. This is mayaz. This is from them, meaning from before world, before time. And this is what's called merumam misnam nusib be'etzem. What is the meaning of etzem? Etzem means, in the word be'etzem here is used in contrast to relative. Something that's higher than world, it's relative to world, it's above. So we understand it elevates it stands above world. Stands above world means that there is a world, recognize there is a world, and this stands above world. And it doesn't get involved in the world, it doesn't get swept away with worldly effects. That's all fine, but it's still a recognition that it is a relative, it is above being affected by world. But here we say levada. Levada means before there is world. This is not in relative to world that he is above. There is an essential element of superiority, of supremacy. This is the Melech Hamrim Levada.
It's higher than the contrast to relativity.
Yes. Higher than the contrast altogether. Levada. This is the meaning of the word be'etzem. Be'etzem means something that is in essence unto itself, not in comparison to anything else. There is nothing there to compare to. But that's not even the point. The point is that there is this element of supremacy not needing the element of supremacy which is an essential element of supremacy. Always looking for some kind of a means of grasp that we should be able to demonstrate what we mean. We appreciate in our world the principle of cleanliness. Cleanliness. Purity. All cleanliness that we can experience here, no matter how perfect and how shiny it is shiny relative to being dirty. Even if you shine up a piece of glass and it's totally perfectly translucent, this glass is exposed to the dirty air, and eventually it gets fogged. We have to continue to wipe it off, make it shiny again. Even though essentially in itself it remains glass, still it relates, it can be touched by impurity. Then we look up, as we say all the time, look up at the sky. The sky cannot be reached by the impurity of the world. This is a separate creation. Hashomayim Oretz. Oretz is Cheshach Apnei Zeh. Shomayim, that always remains within the world context above being affected. If we should take this model and project it into the human soul and recognize that in the human soul there is also a shomayim that cannot be touched by impurity. How can it be? It's in the human body. It's part of the human experience of eating and drinking and sleeping and lying and doing all those things. Despite all that, it cannot be affected. It remains on the shomayim levada. It means and totally superior to all the human experiences. Even though it's a participant. This is how the Rebbe says that somebody falls down and even falls to the point of sin. He can affect everything, but ad bichinas chochma shebo. Then in the nefesh it's what's called bichinas chochma, and that cannot be touched by worldly effects. So that even in the human being, even in our own world, there is that supreme truth that is Motzui Rishon is presented from a presentation of Motzui Rishon that is not affected by any consequences. This is in fact the reason that a Yid, no matter what experiences he had gone through, ultimately he can do tshuva and he can be elevated from all these impurities to the highest level of purity. This levadei, this is what is Menusa Be'etzem. It is there in Menusa Be'etzem. One moshel that we had in the past for something of this nature is when one is on the ground and he's trying to locate a place. And he has all kinds of different directions and signs. This turn, yes, turn here, don't turn here. And he is constantly kind of trial and error process. Even though he's very familiar, nonetheless, there's still a trial and error. Is this what I remember? This is what I'm supposed to do, or this is not. That is when he is on the ground. Because on the ground, everything obstructs his ultimate goal, his ultimate view. He has to find it by negotiating the terrain. He has to acknowledge every turn. But if he were looking from a higher view, like we have on the Empire State Building, there's the same terrain, but he doesn't negotiate it. Doesn't obstruct the view. When he says turn right, turn left, it doesn't mean turn right so that you wouldn't get confused, or turn left. No, this. You're going always in the right. You always see the goal. It's a kind of a means of demonstrating this kind of concept that you're essentially above confusion. Not there isn't multiplicity. There is multiplicity, but it doesn't confuse you. It doesn't obstruct the truth. This is the meaning. Amrumo misnasa be'etzem. As much as there is going to be a world, and he is going to be reigning in the world, and recognize remains be'etzem, not affected by the confusion of the world. Always clear of his, so to speak, of what the reality is and what the goal is and so forth. This is what the Rebbe emphasizes so much. Umrusu be'etzem. Be'etzem means, again, the end of the second line, She'eino shayach le'ilomis klal, where he has no relation to worlds at all. Worlds do not affect him. So when he said he is above, we don't mean above being affected by the world. There's no shaykhs to it. He has an essential reality.
We did say at the beginning that these three levels of light are all as they are becoming relevant to creation.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so
Which would imply the source of the light too at this level has interest or relates to it.
right. Okay, so this is an important point to recognize. But this is saying, like I explained all the way back, however, all the way back means that there's Aliyah Zorotz. Aliyah Zorotz. A will came up. What initiated, what solicited this will? Is it the concern about the world, that the world shouldn't get lost? What is the Aliyah Zorotz? Aliyah Zorotz is something which also starts from the truth of his being. It's not a response to a need. It's an intent to bestow something that the world doesn't even know about. So that's the answer to your question. Yes, indeed, it has a shaykhus to world, but not because the world solicits it. But he recognizes he wants to give it to the world. Aliyah Zorotz. He wants to give world of his truth, to the extent that it's possible to be given.
Can you repeat that again? He wants to give world,
A sense of his truth. She'eino shayach le'ilomis klal. No shaykhs to the world, and world cannot affect it. V'zehu levadoi. And this is the meaning of the word levadoi. Levadoi means by himself, alone. And if he is by himself, so where do we come to talk about it? The answer is bechinas hu levadehu. He is telling the world that the only real truth is him. And this is being, so to speak, told to the world. Lavadehu. Okay, I just want to have one more minute. I just want to explain the words to the extent possible. Hu levadehu. He by himself, he. Normally the word who, he is in third person. That means that there is me, and there is a second person, there is he. There's a whole development. That means that the third person, the who, is in recognition that there is me, and there is you, and there is he. So he says, no, there is a he. that is not in recognition of the first and second person. Is he only because he stands aloof, not because there's other things. Who are they? Who? As alone, he is just a who, because you cannot have access to him. But you know about him as a he in third person.
Is it not like saying like the who is in a sense of, from his perspective, like first person? Like from Hashem's perspective, there's only him.
No. From Hashem's perspective, he doesn't even. There's no only him and anything. This is only Hashem's perspective as he presents himself to the world. The world has a who. He doesn't have a who. He presents the world with a reality that is a who, not as a result of first and second and third person, but levado. This is it for this morning.
Good.
Yeah.